Hi, everyone. Welcome to another KE Report webinar. In this webinar, I am featuring Eskay Mining. I am chatting with the technical advisor and director, Quinton Hennigh. Eskay Mining is traded on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol ESK and on the OTCQX under the symbol ESKYF. Now, we have already received a lot of questions that have been emailed to me. You can keep emailing me. Fleck@kereport.com. And you can also use this webinar system to ask your questions. I'm going to be interjecting questions here throughout this webinar as Quinton works through a presentation, a lot, really mostly focused on the exploration and exploration potential here at Eskay Mining's property, this SIB property. Now, Quinton, I know you have a presentation all ready to go here, and we do want to get into this because we want to get out the most information as possible. But as you bring up this presentation, please just give us a general overview of where we're going to be focusing for this webinar.
Okay, that's a good idea because, I presume there's some people who have joined who don't know this story, and it's really important to kind of set the stage. It's a very interesting story. It dates back about a little over 30 years now, because the Eskay Creek deposit, which is the highest grade deposit ever mined on the planet Earth, was found about 32 years ago. Okay, let's fire up the deck here. I'm going to, sorry, I thought it was on the first slide. It's not. Go to the cover slide. There gives you a sense of the topography we're dealing with. It is in the Golden Triangle, towards the southern half of the Golden Triangle. So it's in BC. This is pretty classic Golden Triangle country. You can see a lot of fairly high peaks. There are some glaciers up in the higher ranges there, but where we're exploring, most of what we're exploring is down in the valleys, and that is actually where the Eskay Creek deposit was just kind of off the edge of one of these mountains here. Look, Eskay Creek, very famous mine. When they found it, it was just astonishing. Some of the drill results that came out of very high grade results. I remember as a kid at university running down to the library every week because at that time there's no internet, and the only way of communication was the Northern Miner. And I remember running down to read articles about the drill success at Eskay Creek, seeing often 10s or even 100+ meter intercepts of over an ounce, sometimes many ounces of gold per ton. Absolutely astonishing deposit. Now, Eskay Creek is what we call a VMS, a volcanogenic massive sulphide deposit. And if you're a geologist, you know right away, okay, VMS deposits, they formed on the seafloor, but they occur in clusters. All the work that we've done on the seafloor, going down in submarines and having a look at these systems, shows that they're basically like submarine hot springs. They have broad, fields of vents that come up, and they bring hot waters out of the seafloor and deposit metals. In this case, precious metal-rich metals, and they occur in clusters. You don't just end up with one system. You almost never see one VMS by itself. They're almost always in clusters. But here we are in the middle of a belt of submarine volcanic rocks. And to date, guess what? Only one significant VMS of this type has been found. That's the Eskay Creek mine. Okay, so people ask me all the time, why on earth? Why has it taken 30 years to find more? This property had an interesting history, very promotional history for the first maybe 25, 30 years. Not a lot of good science. It was often, brief forays, raising some money on excitement, running in, drilling some wildcat holes, seeing some interesting stuff, but not really following up on it. A lot of the geology during those early days, especially in the 1990s, was not understood. Okay. It took a while for people to understand what Eskay Creek was and understand what type of system. They actually figured it out over a period of about 10 years. One of the key people who studied Eskay Creek is a guy named Thomas Monique. He's now a professor at the Colorado School of Mines. Thomas did his doctoral thesis at Eskay Creek, knows the deposit. He's a VMS expert, knows the deposit inside and out. And guess what? He's a good friend of mine. Okay, so when Mac Balcom, CEO, asked me to help, a couple years back. I said, look, Mick, you need a team to explore, especially in this country. You need some horsepower. I said, can I talk to Thomas? And he said, certainly, go ahead. So I spoke with Thomas. I said, Thomas, do you know anybody out there who can help run an exploration program? Somebody's got a good sense for exploring. And he said, yes, I have a student just graduated with a postdoc, John DeDecker. Actually, John had done some work for me, ironically. He'd done a little contracting work for me. So I did know John, and I thought, that's a perfect fit. Went back to Mac, said, we have our team. Mac agreed. We actually signed up the Colorado School of Mines as advisors back in October 2019, and that's when this excitement started. Okay, we took all that historic data, all that very promotional data, and John systematically put together paper logs, paper assays, just reams and reams and reams of historic data into the computer. He got it up to the modern era. And in doing so, he started to see some amazing things. There were actually discoveries, like incipient discoveries, in hand from that historic data. There were historic holes at TB and Jeff that hit VMS, but they had never been followed up. They were wildcat holes, widely spaced. Guess what? We jumped in the field last year, middle of COVID, but we were able to get money in the bank and get out and start doing some work. And the guys saw what we needed to see right away. They saw some of the historic core, confirmed the VMS nature of these things. They saw outcrops while they were doing some line cutting for geophysics. Said, yep, there's sulphide outcropping here. We were also able to do what's called a SkyTEM survey, an electrical survey, and we saw a very clear picture of a very, very large system. Okay, so with that stage set, I'm going to now go through the deck. Of course, this is our disclaimer, forward-looking statements. Yes.
Quinton, one quick question regarding some of that historic work. If a lot of that company or the prior explorers here were more of the promotional nature, how reliable has some of that old data been? And how much are you using some of the data from the Eskay Creek mine that's right beside this project in terms of guiding some of the exploration?
Certainly. Look, there's a lot of published information on the Eskay Creek mine. Of course, Thomas has a lot of stuff in his head. We don't have the direct data in-house here at Eskay Mining, but we have basically the collective knowledge within our team of the geology of that area. Okay. As far as the historic data that was collected on this property, look, John methodically went through and did QA/QC on the historic data. There was some data that was not able to, be verified. Like we couldn't find assay certificates or stuff. Some of that didn't make the cut, but the data that he was able to verify certainly did make the cut. And one of the more remarkable things we found was a lot of those historic holes did not have assays down the length of the hole. A lot of them were only, very selectively assayed. There were several holes, many holes actually, that only had maybe 2 or 3% of the overall length of the hole had been assayed. We actually went back and started assaying some of those. In fact, we're doing more of that work this year, where we have that historic core, and we're making discovery just based on that. It's actually quite remarkable. But the database in its current form is thoroughly cleaned up, and I would say it's verifiable as best as can be done, given the data is 30 years old.
Okay, thanks, Quinton. Let's move on.
All righty. Okay, shares out. We got about 163 million shares out. Been trading around 260 lately. You can see our market cap is a little north of 400 million. Fair number of options and warrants in the money. We do expect some of those warrants to come in, especially later this season, to help finance the current program. We have about 13 million in the bank, a little bit more. We're planning on doing at least 30,000 meters this year, perhaps 40,000. The way drilling's going right now, it looks like it's going to be very quick. Okay, so we might be able to get 40,000 meters with a little bit of luck. All right, people.
What's the budget going to be on that meterage there, Quinton?
Yeah, the budget, if we do drill 40,000 meters, it will be at about 14 million, which is what we set as a budget with this program. That's going to be we have spent some money. Okay, so we've been working for a few weeks now, even our SkyTEM survey, but we will spend pretty much all of the money that we had on January 1 of this year. But that's discovery this type of discovery justifies every penny. Let's put it that way. Mac is the CEO. Mac's been the CEO for a little over 10 years. He basically came in and cleaned up the company. He brought in several people who were close to him, like Rob and Gordon, as directors, and they've kept this company together and the ship pretty tight over the past 10 years. And it's only really been in the past few years that myself as director and technical advisor, Tom Weiss has been helping Mac here for a few years. Tom and I worked together at Newmont. Excellent geophysicist. He was the chief geophysicist at Newmont. And he's like the one you want to do geophysics over VMS systems like this. So delight to have him on board. And then John DeDecker, the doctor from the Colorado School of Mines, who I mentioned earlier, is our vice president of exploration. Absolutely brilliant young lad. I think he will be mining man of the year very soon. Okay, so what do we have? We have 52,600 hectares, which is 526 square kilometers in the Golden Triangle. We're basically adjacent to the Eskay Creek mine. And even though there's potential for other styles of deposits on this ground, we are focused like a laser on the precious metal-rich VMS. Why? Because those deposits are just some of the best, highest margin deposits you can find on this planet. They're absolutely cash cows. These things are killers. This slide tells you a little bit about the infrastructure, but we have great news. We did sign an agreement here just last week with Seabirds to start building a road across. It goes straight across our property down to their Kerr Sulphurettes operation that they're planning to build. And that's going to open up this property. So soon you will see a road straight across our property. We will go from strictly helicopter support to road accessible drilling, which will help the company save huge amounts of money going forward.
How much is that going to save the company approximately here?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if you look at like all-in costs, with the helicopter support, the drill costs, assays, et cetera, for a meter, it's about $300-400 a meter, probably $400, we'll call it Canadian, a meter. With road access, I think we can see reductions of 30 to 40% on that number. So it's a considerable amount of money when you're starting to drill tens of thousands of meters. So it's a huge, huge win for us. This shows our land package. It used to be a bit broken up because we had different arrangements. One was a joint venture that's no longer in present. Now 100% owned. The whole package is 100% owned. We cleaned that up earlier this year. It gives our shareholders maximum exposure to this absolutely wonderful discovery. VMS deposits. Okay, this slide shows all the little polka dots are VMS deposits plotted with gold grade on the vertical axis and tonnage on the horizontal axis. It is logarithmic scale. Okay, so you go up by tens. All right. And what this is showing is the size of VMS deposits. So as you go from left to right, you're seeing increasing size, and you get VMS into the millions of tons. But you also see the gold grade on the vertical. Okay, many VMS have maybe 1 gram gold, something like that. It's very exceptional to see high grade, say plus 10 gram gold in VMS. But Eskay Creek had 46 gram per ton head grade. It's just head and shoulders above any other VMS on Earth. It stands out. It's like way above. Now, in terms of tonnage, though, it's kind of in the middle. Okay, it was a little over 3 million tons. What does that mean? Well, I told you earlier that VMS occur in camps. They occur in clusters. Well, you would expect to find quite a few little small ones, maybe a few middle-sized ones, and maybe 1 or 2 bigger ones. All right? We think we have the rest of the Eskay camp. We think we have potential on our ground, and I'll show you some of the evidence we're seeing, that we have one of the bigger fish on our property. Okay, that's interesting. But we also think we have multiple fish.
So that's a key point, Quinton, because there are a number of questions that came in asking, what's the potential similarity size-wise from the Eskay Creek historical deposit, what was already mined there, to what could be here for the Eskay Mining Corp? I wish I could give an absolute crystal clear answer to that question, but it's going to take exploration to prove it up. Now, here's what I'm going to show people. I got a few drawings that I put together earlier this morning. I'm going to put in front of people
our view, like how we're starting to see some of the targets that we're drilling, especially this Jeff zone, and what it might be saying about potential size. And I'll let people draw their own conclusions, and that's okay. All right. So with that, you can see here all of the little yellow stars that you see scattered across our property are VMS occurrences. We've gone back and verified. They've gone out in the field, examined this rock at surface. They've looked at old drill core, whatever it takes, but they found that virtually everything on this property is indeed of VMS nature. John is meticulous. He's one of the best scientists, just raw science that I know. Okay, he puts together images that look very complex, but actually convey a crystal clear story of what we're seeing. And in this image, what he's doing is he's showing the strata. These are layered rocks. Okay, they were deposited on the seafloor. You started with volcanic rocks, and then you went into sedimentary rocks. And the VMS deposits, these hot springs, they came up through the volcanic rocks, and they formed lenses of sulphide. Okay, so he's showing here the respective position of the sulphides that we've discovered to date in that strata, in those layers. And it's quite interesting because we see multiple layers. And that's the same thing they see over at Eskay Creek, that the work that Skeen has done. They find different layers of mineralization. We see the same layers, same respective position in the stratigraphy. It's a confusing diagram, but it tells a story. It tells the reader that there is a lot going on here, multiple levels of mineralization. And believe me, this picture is not complete. Okay, as we explore more, I think you're going to see other sulfide bodies emerge, and that's where it gets really exciting. You'll see shortly.
So you're really just trying to show that there are a lot of similarities, at least initially, to the Eskay mine and the deposit
Correct.
over there.
Yep, correct. Okay. Absolutely, yes. All righty. A little bit about Eskay Creek. The ore at Eskay Creek was actually what we call clastic. It was made of particles, broken up particles. This VMS deposit was actually, it formed as a mound, but it slid off of its mound and it flowed down probably a submarine canyon or something like this. And it deposited sulfide, broken up sulfide layers. So the ore is of different nature. I'm going to get my little pencil-y thing out here, and hopefully I can show people, but you can see the clastic nature of this material, little particles. As you go further down slope, the particles become finer, and then finally they turn into these little layers of sulfide, or even disseminated sulfide like you have down here. So it's really showing you the proximity to the vent. The vent was probably up here somewhere in this part, and then as you flow down the slope, the sediment size got smaller. So this is a VMS that's actually been transported. It's interesting. Okay, its root, its feeder, isn't really understood yet. Like, we don't know where it is. Okay, now I hope I can get rid of those things. Nobody told me how to get rid of them. Let's see. Let's take this eraser thing, and maybe that'll get rid of it.
There's the little eraser here. I might be able to help you out with that, Quinton.
I think you need a big eraser.
We do. Here, I'm going to help you out with that, though. Get this out of here.
Okay, I had no idea that would stay on the screen. Sorry about that.
Oh, you know what? Boom. Clear. There we go. We're good.
Gosh. Oh, up in the corner. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I just didn't read. Okay, look, these are some of the drill cores from our work at TV Jeff last year, and we're seeing, guess what we're seeing? We're seeing the stockwork, the feeder mineralization. This is basically veins and blobs of sulfide that formed in the sea floor as the fluids were coming up. So we're not seeing the layered stuff yet. I think we will find it, but we're seeing the stockwork. This is really interesting because the magnitude of the stockwork that we found is absolutely extraordinary. You were asking me how big I think this might get. It could be big. Okay, this is a very, very big stockwork zone. I'll talk more about that in a minute. Look, I won't read through all these assays, but what I want to point out here is that in last year's drilling, 20 holes we finished at TV and Jeff, 18 of them had significant mineralized intercepts, and we did see bonanza grades of gold in some of them and bonanza grades of silver in some. Okay, so this is a gold-silver system. Eskay Creek Mine, the grade was 2.1 kilograms of silver per ton as well. In fact, the silver paid for the production of gold. They were producing gold for negative, over $100 negative US per ounce. Okay, silver offset all the costs. That's why Eskay was such a remarkable deposit. Okay, these are slides of some of the higher grade, the bonanza grade stuff we saw out of our first drill program last year. We know that we have the right kind of stuff. We see the same minerals. We see the same minerals like pyrargyrite and tetrahedrite and stuff. These are just weird silver minerals, but they are basically diagnostic of an Eskay Creek system. That's what you find at Eskay. Okay, we did SkyTEM last year. Now, this is the view of SkyTEM work we did last year, but I'm going to save my breath here and show the viewers our detailed data from the current program. Okay, we've bolted on SkyTEM around the northern half of the property to date. We're finishing up the southern half, and we'll show that very soon. But this picture has grown. What you should take away from this slide, all the little blips where you see a little white circle, those are targets that we think are sulphide bodies. They have not been drilled yet, most of them. Most of them we have plans to test this year.
Now, Quinton, we do have a number of questions around this SkyTEM. Some people wanted you to expand a bit more on the SkyTEM survey. We also had somebody asking if the current SkyTEM, does it not include Palm Springs, Casper, Metallus, those type of areas too? Give us a bit more of a clearer picture on the SkyTEM that's ongoing and the SkyTEM that has been done, please.
Yeah, we have SkyTEM for our property. We've got the northern, probably 2/3 of it completely done. They're finishing up the southern third right now. And that data, hopefully they'll finish in the next couple of days. The data should be delivered to Tom and he'll process it. And that way we can put out a full picture. Right now, what I'm going to do at the end of this presentation, I'm going to take people through a detailed look at that SkyTEM. What it does is it looks at the conductivity of the rock in the ground. And what it shows us is areas of high conductivity where electricity can pass through rocks easily, and then areas that are more resistant to electricity. And that contrast is really important. It's not that we're necessarily looking specifically for the sulphide. Like the sulphide will give a signature, but the sulphide, because the volumes of it are relatively small, that's not what we're using the SkyTEM for. We're using the SkyTEM to identify stratigraphy. You remember the layers I talked about earlier. Some of the layers are conductive, some of the layers are resistive. And it's really important to tell where we are, okay? And I think we've done that, okay? And I'm going to show you a detailed picture. So save that question for the end. Okay, so a couple of days ago, we put out news about our current drilling. We picked up at Jeff drilling right adjacent to where I just showed you some of that bonanza mineralization. And guess what? It's getting bigger, okay? In two of the holes, two notable holes, we hit, I believe, 80 meters of this intensely silicified stockwork that you see in these photos. 80 meters, guys. I'm not kidding you. This is crazy stuff. And we did see visible pyrargyrite. That's that red stuff. So in the middle of that center photo, you can see some kind of blood red stuff associated with the pyrite. Over here where the pen is pointing, you can see a little speck of pyrargyrite in the vein. So we already know there's precious metal mineralization. This is a very exciting discovery. It's getting bigger down dip. Okay, hold that thought. Okay, here's our modern SkyTEM. Okay, this is a preview of what I'm going to go through at the end. I want to, because people took their time out to watch this presentation, I have actually got, I'm going to take people through a detailed walkthrough of the SkyTEM and what it means. But you can see right away that we have just beautiful data out of this program. This is the northern 2/3 of our project area. And you can see right away there's beautiful linear features. Those are those strata that I was talking about. The strata that are conductive, Bowser Lake, that's the mud that overlies the volcanic rock. So the greens and the blues are the volcanic rocks that tend to host the VMS. What does it show us? It shows us basically where the sea floor unconformity was, okay? We now know exactly where that sweet spot is, and we can follow. So if you notice, okay, I'm going to take my pen again, and we're going to turn this like that. You can see the Eskay Creek mine right there. Guess what? The Eskay anticline wraps around, and we can see right away, right there. That's the unconformity. We know precisely where it is, all the way down to, guess what? TV and Jeff. Here's TV. Here's Jeff. Notice there's these weird protuberances right there and right there. There's one up here that we haven't touched yet. There's a little guy right here. There's a little guy right up here. There's a whole string of these things. If you start looking, there's a little guy right there. There's ones over on this side. Okay, look at all these guys here. What goes on to the south? Don't know yet. We'll find out shortly. What does it mean? Think of it like a string of Christmas lights. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, I said there might be more than one VMS. I'm not kidding. This thing up here, really interesting. We got high stream sediment samples out of this area that nobody's explored, but there's a really high chargeable feature right there. That looks very suspicious, guys.
So, Quinton, how many targets are here? I know we're going to get into this SkyTEM, but that's a big question that's come up is just how many targets does the company have?
You know, I got to say, I've almost lost track. I mean, we were up to about 24 before we got this data, and now we're seeing resolution on I'd say at least a dozen more, and that's just in the northern half. Okay, when the southern or northern 2/3, when the southern third comes in, I think we'll see even more. That area is really exciting.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a little inset of that area in the northeast. Look at this chargeable feature here. Look, it's two images on top of each other. Okay, so what we have here is BLEG data. This is our stream sediment data, and those streams right there are just smoking hot. They have lots of gold in the sediment. Okay, and it happens to be that the geophysics, the SkyTEM has showed a super duper high conductor right there. Basically, that's the seafloor unconformity. Has it ever been touched? No, there's not a drill hole. Nobody even knew there was anything out there. We found this through raw boots on the ground exploration and the geophysics. I think we have something amazing there. We will try to drill that later this year. We have to get permitting, but we're going to try our best to get that on the slate. Okay, John has gone out of his way to draw stratigraphic sections and show the respective position of the sulphide bodies that we know about to date. Now, that is not to say there isn't more sulphide up section. In fact, the Eskay Creek part of the system would actually be up in this area, right up in here. Okay, so if we want to find the exhalative part, the fluids were working their way up. They were making these sulfide bodies like these and like this and like this, but those fluids eventually found their way to the seafloor, which is actually about in this position and maybe up in this position as well. And this is where you'd expect to find the Eskay Creek type stuff. Okay, we haven't got up there yet. Okay, we're actually working our way up the hill, doink, 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 and there's a logic to it. I'll show you why we're doing it this way very shortly. Okay, I'm going to skip some of the technical slides here. These are images of the precious metal minerals that we see in under the microscope. It's academic level stuff that is very interesting, but it's not worth people's time right now. Look, we have other targets. Siblulu, which is on the west side of the anticline, it sits over here. So TV Jeff are kind of down in here, and Siblulu are over here. We have mineralization encountered in historic drill holes up to, you can see, 14.4 grams per ton gold, a kilogram silver over 14 meters. There is system on that side of the anticline. Very interesting. Okay. I am going to save my breath because I see that we're already at a half an hour. I want to cut to the chase here and show people the SkyTEM. So I'm going to go through a few slides very quickly here. I'm going to show that we are going to drill. We'll probably drill a few holes at Siblulu, but we are seeing higher priority targets. Okay, right now, John, myself, and the other folks involved in this are actually seeing, as we see the data come in, we're starting to reorganize our drill priorities. While Siblulu, certainly an important target for us, it has seen at least some drilling. We will probably drill some here this year, but I think we are seeing higher, like that thing up in the northeast. Okay, we're seeing higher priority targets pop out immediately that could be huge for us. Now, this happens to be this little Tom McKay deposit right here. Let's, why that goes fuzzy. Right up there in the corner. That is on Skeena's ground. And Tom McKay is really just the end of our Siblulu trend. All of these kind of fuzzy patches you see here, those are sulfide bodies at depth on our ground. Okay, so we do know there's, basically we know it's there. It's a known. Okay, so we're more interested in finding new right now. Okay, what do we think's going on here? Well, this is magnetic data, not SkyTEM. This is magnetic data, and what we think we have are three anticlines. We have the eastern anticline right here. We have the Eskay anticline right here, and then we have a western anticline. So think of this like a wrinkled carpet, like the seafloor was literally just pushed and the folds and formed because of that. Okay, and because we have repetitive folds on each side of the fold, each fold, you have potential to find VMS deposits. Because as you fold the rock up and Mother Nature starts to erode down into it, it gets down into those VMS systems. That's pretty cool. We have lots and lots of ground to explore. Okay, I'm going to now end it. Look, Cory, if you want to ask me any questions on the presentation part, this would be a good time to do it, because I'm going to jump over to the detailed image of the SkyTEM.
Okay, hold on. Yeah, let's get into a couple of these questions in terms of drilling and these targets. You already just answered one there that asked, is the far northeast target a better target than what TV Jeff and Siblulu were? Sounds like you're more encouraged even by some of these newer targets. What's it going to take to test out some of these targets? Because it sounds like no drilling or very, very limited historic drilling has ever happened at any of these targets. How do you have to go about testing these?
We want to do a little bit more data collection. Obviously, if we see a target like that emerge from geophysics and our geochem data, we want to get onto the ground and actually look at the rocks as best we can. Now, some of these areas are covered, but where the guys can get in and actually, do a field inspection, try to see if there's sulphide sticking out of the ground, that's a great first step. Okay. Now, if we do, then it's easy. You can simply put a drill, like you look at the dip of the rock and then you put your drill up above, so you can drill through that strata and test your target. Okay, if we don't see sulfide outcropping, it doesn't mean there's nothing there. It could just be covered by glacial till or some other thing. All right, in those cases, we might have to be more methodical and simply drill fences of holes across stratigraphy to try to find those, what is causing that anomaly. There is definitely something sticking out of the ground there. We don't have the full answers yet, but I will tell you, as far as priority goes, yes, that target in the northeast, very, very high on our list right now.
Okay. And it sounds like some of these targets from at least the SkyTEM, they result in outcrop. Some don't. When it comes to this overall program, 30,000 to 40,000 meters, one question was, will you have a full picture of this project? It doesn't seem necessarily like you will, because you have so many targets. Address this question.
These targets, it's unreal. Okay, I would expect we can probably adequately test an additional 8 to 12. We'll call it reasonably well by the end of the season, on top of the TB and Jeff. Okay, TB and Jeff, because they are deposits and we want to see how they expand. We do have 2 drills dedicated to those right now, so they're just pounding away. And then we're going to have other drills, like 2 drills testing the areas up to the north. And then probably as soon as the snow melts to the south and we get our data back here, we'll park one down to the southern targets as well. But yes, there's 2 goals here. One is to step out and expand TV Jeff, the known. And the other is to test as many of these targets as possible before late October.
Now, is it as simple as saying that you're simply looking for the highest grade, or what else are you going to be looking for to give you, I guess, the impetus to come back and test even more?
Usually when we hit these things, we know it. It's pretty black and white.
Okay. So you won't need a ton of holes then. You can poke a couple holes in there and get a pretty good understanding of it.
If we test these targets and we see, sizable intervals of sulfide, for example, a few meters or a few tens of meters of sulfide, boom, we know we have a discovery. Okay, does that mean we can drill it out this year? No. But at least it tells us, yes, we have something to follow up next year. You can look at our work last year at TV Jeff and get an idea of where we want to head. Okay, if we find another 8 or 10 targets that look like they should be drilled up in detail this year, then we'll do the same thing we're doing at TV Jeff. We'll get enough rigs in, we can do systematic drilling around each one of those targets to grow this thing. Because I do think, I think these things will start to connect together. This is not, if you were on the seafloor and you could see one of these sulfide systems, it'd blow you away. They're often 20, 30 kilometers across. I think we're looking at a pristinely preserved sulfide system that just happens to have been folded up, like I said, like a wrinkled carpet, and Mother Nature just gently eroded down. We're seeing the whole enchilada. It's one big system.
Okay, so this could be, as you just said, one big system, not a bunch of different deposits, even though it seems like target-wise, that's what everyone seems to be a bit more focused on, is that look at all these different options or targets, but it could just be one big
exactly.
system.
I'll give you an example. We're drilling the first, call it Wildcat target north of Jeff. We talked about it in the news release. We hit sulfide. We hit several, I can't remember how many meters, like 7 or 8 meters of sulfide mineralization in that hole. Now we know, like, I don't know, 500 meters or a bit more, I think, north of Jeff. Guess what? There's still sulfides up there. Interesting. Okay. It is amazing. All right.
How deep are some of these targets? One more quick question.
Most of them, look, when we see the geophysical expression, like a real distinct little, bump, high amplitude feature, it's usually shallow, like it's probably outcropping. Mm-hmm. Some of them are a little more subtle, like they're probably a bit deeper, maybe 100, 150 meters, till we get to them. But we can see them. We know they're down there. All the little pimples are definitely generated by something in those rocks.
Okay. Thanks. Let's move on then.
Yep. Okay. Let's. I'm going to stop the slide presentation. People, bear with me because I'm not perfectly technically savvy. But what I'm going to do is go to my screen share, and this is going to do spastic things for a second. And we'll do that, and then I'm going to put my browser down, and hopefully, look. Now I can't see you, Cory. So
that's okay.
I'm going to rely on you to tell me if you can see what's going on.
We can see this. Yes.
Okay, so this is that SkyTEM. Now, the beauty, right now, I can zoom in and out and show you some things. Okay, so let's look at this. Now, first of all, the purple strip through here and then over here, that's the Bowser Lake. What is this? It's an anticline. Okay, this is an upfolded body of rock. The greens in here, that's the Hazelton group. That's the volcanic rocks that host the VMS. So if you think about the rocks over here, these Bowser Lakes on this side, they're dipping to the east. Okay, they're dipping steeply to the east. The rocks over here in the west are dipping away to the west. Everything in the middle here has been uplifted. Okay, that's what an anticline is. Now, why is this SkyTEM data so important? It shows us that boundary. This yellow line that you see right here, hopefully you can see my cursor, is basically the sea floor. Okay, and I'm going to take a little. Well, if I mark on this, it'll screw everything up, so I'm not going to do that. Here's Eskay Creek. That's the footprint of the Eskay deposit. They have other zones here, the 22 and then the Tom McKay down here. But that's the main body of the Eskay Creek deposit. Notice how it occurs just inboard from the unconformity. All right, so what we want to be is on the inboard side of the unconformity. But right here, see that big purple bump we have just on our side of the property? To me, that smells like a sulfide or potential system hiding underneath the seafloor unconformity. There's a little bit of a protuberance sticking out there, maybe feeder material. You can see a similar thing here. There's a little protuberance sticking out again with a very pronounced conductive zone right through here. Look at this guy here. I don't know what the heck this thing is, but I mean, that's a sulfide feeder. Wow, that's a humdinger. And look at this very, very conductive feature, just high tucked along the margin of the Bowser Lake. There's something very interesting going on there. We have not drilled there yet, by the way, guys. Okay, where have we drilled? We've drilled down here at Jeff. Okay, we are down a bit below, but we're working our way up section. So the spectacular core we got the other day comes from that little tiny purple blob right there. And as we drill down dip, which is to the east, it's getting fatter. It's getting fatter. So we think there's something hiding underneath this protuberance here, this pajingus that sticks out right there. Okay. Same at TV. We've hit beautiful sulfide, some very high grades. Here, look at there. South, we have two blobs right next to us. There's stuff in here. But again, we have this weird protuberance. There's another protuberance down here. Think about the sea floor. I mean, this is basically giving you a map of the sea floor. Now, that's that sulfide anomaly. I said we're drilling north of Jeff. We drilled a hole right here on the southern edge. It hit sulfide, guys, already. We're seeing it. Okay, so we're very optimistic. We're going to see more. We have targets over here on this side. Look at that. Look at that. Look at these guys over here. Okay, lots and lots to come. And it's really, again, if I zoom back out, you can put it in context. It is part of a much bigger system. Okay, this anticline, it wraps up around Eskay Creek, comes down here. it's like a string of Christmas lights. We're literally looking at a cross-sectional view through the seafloor, and we're seeing what could be multiple VMS systems in profile. Something I'll point out, look at that. We don't know what that is. That looks very interesting. We do have BLEG data through this area that shows anomalous BLEG. This is that one I talked about in the northeast, a very sharp conductive feature. I'm going to go over here and turn the BLEG layer on for a second. Now that's opaque BLEG layer. Okay, so it shows you our high BLEGs. We have
Quinton, explain this whole BLEG thing a little bit more, because we did have a couple of questions come in.
Okay, it's BLEG is a type of stream sediment sampling in which you collect the clay fraction of the sediment. So you collect the finest sediment in that drainage. And you do that because it gives you the best signal for gold. Okay, it kind of eliminates a lot of the noisy nature of gold data. And it gives you, like, it just distills it down to the best signal possible. Okay, and because of that, you can see really cohesive gold anomalies, like this guy right here, this pink area. Those are spectacular numbers for BLEG, by the way. You know, like as soon as you start to see 10 or 20 ppb BLEGs, that's interesting. Okay, when you start to see, 70 or 90 ppb BLEGs, those are off the chart. Okay, that is something sticking out of the ground in that area. There's just absolutely 100% certainty. So these BLEGs are like an uber sensitive technique, and allow us to focus our efforts on the most productive parts of this system. Okay, now what's remarkable about this, if I turn the BLEG down, the opacity, sorry, I think I turned another layer down. I sure did.
So Quinton, regarding this BLEG, the stream sediments, then there are some significant readings in an area called C10, which is at the opposite end of the Eskay anticline.
Yep.
Was any BLEG study done at Eskay Creek that you can compare some of these results to?
We don't have BLEG data on the skenogram, which is up here. Okay, we don't own the ground. We couldn't take samples, so no, we don't have anything. I don't know if there's historic data there. That's one. Like Thomas has never said, "Oh yeah, they have BLEG data" or something like that. So I don't know. I simply don't know. But I do think. Look, having used BLEG for many years, I know that this is the best technique. Okay, so if I play with this layer, you can see right away, there's our BLEG, and then if I kind of make it transparent, guess what? There's a conductive feature right there. That's a no-brainer. All right, there's something popping out of the ground. Now, where it gets interesting, we have BLEG anomalism. See the orange through here? There's many samples along this side, and guess what? They're probably showing us that there's gold coming out of this area here along the west side of the Eskay anticline. In fact, TV Jeff, which are down here, yielded a 24 ppb BLEG. Okay, so that gives you a sense. If TV Jeff, if what we're seeing in our drilling at TV Jeff is generating 24 ppb, I'd love to know what's generating 91 ppb. Okay, something bloody big. Okay, like wow, kind of stuff. Now notice this is on the eastern anticline. This is the eastern anticline where it comes up and it wraps around. It's kind of like the end of a banana. Okay, guess what? Eskay anticline is like this again. It's about like the end of a banana. Eskay Mine is at the end of the banana. Wouldn't it be delightful? Wouldn't it be delightful if right in here we find Eskay Creek 2, and then maybe down here we have Eskay Creek 3 and 4 and 5, and et cetera, et cetera. You get the picture.
I think we all get the picture here, Quinton, is that there's a lot of drilling to do and a lot of really true exploration drilling. A couple of questions have come in saying, how many years are you guys going to have to drill this thing to get an understanding of what's possible, or to even move forward with some sort of a mining or development scenario?
You know what? We found a camp here. I think we're going to be here for many years, but I think the work that we do over the next couple of years will result in a productive deposit that can be developed into a mine. I think, Skeena too. This is ripe territory. Okay, this is a district scale play. We have most of the district, and we anticipate being here for the long haul. All right. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yep, that makes sense. Is the road that's going to be built, is that going to allow for you guys to have a longer drill season?
It will once we get camp established. We're going to, because of the road, we can now put in a camp and so forth of our own. Like, right now we've basically been getting access through other people's grounds. And our camp even has been on other people's ground. So we're going to put our own camp facility in. I think we're going to end up building a very nice camp facility for a long haul here, because this is shaping up to be a major discovery.
Okay. Sounds like multiple major discoveries, potentially.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. Now, this is a diagram I put together very quickly this morning, but it shows you the stockwork, how this thing looks. Okay, so this is our feeder zone in profile, and where it finds horizons within the sediments in the volcanic rocks that it can leak out, it might form these horizontal bodies. Over the top of it, it forms a sulphide mountain. When those fluids come to the surface of the ocean, they form these chimneys. The sediment coming out of the chimneys forms a big mound. Okay, now in the case of Eskay Creek, like I told you, the mound broke apart and it slid down the hill. So Eskay Creek is more like this thing over here. But I show you this because I want to show people what we think is going on at Jeff. Okay, so I've taken this picture and I've simply tilted it on its side and brought in erosion. Okay, so this is basically the hill slope at Jeff. This is the mountain. It goes up, it wraps over, and then there's a valley through here. This is entirely covered with stuff, moss and peat and whatnot. So we can't see what's going on through here. But our drilling from last year, the purple holes literally just tagged what I think are the up-dip expression of a much bigger feeder system below. So I think our first holes in 2020 tag what we call the upper Jeff zone right here, and then the lower Jeff zone down here. And that the new drilling that we've just done, like holes 41 and 46, they're drilling a bit further down dip, and they're seeing fatter, thicker, 80 meters, guys, intercepts of this, intense stockwork mineralization, hopefully high grade. But guess what? Those are just leading us down into the main plumbing system. Okay, we think the main feeder zone for the VMS is somewhere down dip. You remember that big purple blob, that Pajingus I said is sticking out there? Well, guess what's probably generating it? Okay, something like this. Okay, so so now why is John taking baby steps? What he's trying to do is he's trying to feel his way in and actually identify, the exact position of this core of this stockwork, because if we find that, then we know that the sulphide body, hopefully the sulphide body, should be in a position above that. So he's kind of stepping up the hill, and we'll get data as we go this way. We'll get data from the core of the system, hopefully over the next few weeks, and that'll lead us into that hopefully exhalative environment where we can find, we'll call it more of the Eskay Creek type, bedded sulphide type stuff. But this is a big picture. This is what we think is going on. It's a big system, guys. When you asked me earlier, how big do I think this could be? Right now, we found a feeder that is already way beyond anything that's envisioned for the feeder for the Eskay Creek mine. That was actually a fairly small deposit, only 3 million tons. This one looks and smells bigger.
Okay. Now, there have been a number of questions coming in asking about the potential development of this asset, but it's clearly way too early to talk about how you could even develop anything like that. But one technical question that I think you could address is, this sounds very much like KSM, Hazelton, Jurassic, Boundary, except possibly much higher grade. Is that a fair comparison to make?
It is. Look, the history of ore formation in this area is actually progressive. So these are the first deposits that formed. And what's remarkable, I've had this discussion with a lot of geologists, like Borden Putnam and I had a chat a while back, and it's just remarkable how well endowed these early rocks are with mineral. I mean, think about Eskay Creek, and then even just the background level of anomalous metal in these volcanic and sedimentary rocks. And then imagine you then bring in other processes, intrusions, you start squeezing and folding things, and you produce veining and stuff like this. I think you see a spectrum, like a continuation of the mineralizing systems as time progressed. So this is early Jurassic. As time progressed, over the next, what would be about 30 or 40 million years, you see more porphyry-like deposits. Look at Tudor and stuff, and then you see, you see like the Brucejack kind of thing too. So it's an amazing piece of crust on Earth here. It's just remarkable.
Okay. Quinton, look, we're going to wrap this up because this has gone on for about 50 minutes, a lot of information to take in, and a lot on your guys' target generation. But wrap us up with the overall drill program, when we're going to be seeing some results, what the flow of the results are going to be, and what you think investors really need to focus on the most, understanding that this is still, sounds to me, early stage exploration.
It is. Like we're making every effort to rush those two holes that we talked about in that last news release. In fact, we're going to try to rush a few others. Those are from the upper Jeff Zone. I think we'll see very good results. When those might come back, maybe early August. I'm going to try my best to push ALS and use some friends I know, hopefully, to get them through. But I'll tell you what, everybody's busy now up there. Okay, so everybody's starting to dogpile and get samples into the lab right now. And from that point forward, I would anticipate some backlogs at the lab. We're going to do our darndest to make sure we get our samples analyzed in a timely fashion because we have such a large volume. We're treated a bit more higher preference, I guess is the best way to put it. I think we can get 40,000 meters in this year. The drilling is just going tickety-boo right now. We got all 4 rigs going, and the guys emailed me this morning. They think they can get past 40,000 meters. So basically, we do have the bandwidth to test more and more of those targets, which is good. That's really nice. Okay, so by the end of this year, what do I want to see? I want to be able to tell people that TV Jeff is indeed a mega VMS system, and that we found the exhalative part. I really hope that exhalative part is up there at the top. So there's one lofty goal for this company. But the next lofty goal is to have maybe another half a dozen of these suckers identified elsewhere along the anticline, the east side of the anticline, that area in the northeast, and wait till you see the south.
Okay, Quinton, a lot to look forward to. Clearly, a lot of drilling coming too, and testing out these targets. Let's see what the drills yield. I know we didn't get to all of the questions. I'll be having Quinton back on my show, kereport.com, to answer some more of those questions. And please keep all the questions coming. Again, my email, fleck@kereport.com. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for sending your questions. Quinton, thanks for taking the time to walk us all through this. Again, we'll follow up as some news hits the market. Quinton, thank you.
Thank you, Cory.